Let's retry Brian Johnson's Don't Die app. So first of all, when opening the app, it showed me access to Health Connect, which I will now probably allow. Okay, allow all. And now, what do I do? It seems there is a bug because I cannot do anything else now. And I also cannot click on allow. So I clicked back and now the permission is denied, it seems. It also now shows me a post of Brian Johnson. Let's take a look at my profile. So first of all, I take a look at the announcements. I click on this, but it doesn't work. This is mostly because the app seems to be still quite buggy. This has been the case in various forms like this since the app started to allow beta users in, which in my case, then I did go in. If I click on search, it also now recommends me Talmadge Johnson and other people that I think work for Brian. I don't know if Talmadge works for Brian, probably not, but I think this person is working for Brian. For me personally, I would find the app way more useful if there was an option to deactivate the feed, as I cannot really have this feed on my phone without this being a gigantic waste of time. I now click on the measurement section, and I was hoping that the Don't Die clock or the live clock is finally available, but it seems to be still not. My biological age, according to the BioAge tests I did a few times already, is 27.7, which is 1.0 years younger than my chronological age. Let's see how this compares to the Technogym Wellness Age, which I tested in the last couple of days. Here I have 24. And then I also have access to the eGym BioAge calculation, which together with the Technogym Wellness Age is probably the best estimation, I would say, of the BioAge. There is also App Insight Tracker, which does a blood age mostly. But in the new app, I cannot find the age. It seems to not be under results or blood or activity. Yes, I found it. It's under reports. So here my biological age was 37.4, which was due to a liver problem I had. Now going back to the Don't Die app, the app again starts. And let's explore the measurement section. First of all, there are the BioAge tests, which all of them I did. And there was also the question of how often should I sample these, and should I use my all-time max, for example, for the continuous push-ups, or just put in the ones that I recently or most recently can do. And of course, this then opens up the question of how often do I sample? Do I also sample on days on which I strength trained before? I'm not quite clear on this. I currently am doing or have been doing once a week tests. So I did the continuous push-ups, usually on the Saturday, on which I do other measurements as well. The grip strength in my case is very, very bad with 82 pounds. One leg stand, I did it once and I had 600 seconds, after which I decided to no longer waste my time doing this test. Then there is also a reaction time app, which one has to separately download. It's not made by the Blueprint or the Don't Die team. And here I do have a not very good reaction time. Then there is also the sit and reach test, the sit and rise, and the waist to height ratio. I think all of these combined do basically or are included in the BioAge calculation, and then result in this BioAge. Previously, there were a couple of other tests in this category as well, but now they divided it differently. There are also now capabilities. For example, I can enter my bench press, and here again the question is this my all-time best, or is this the one value I had yesterday in the gym? And maybe I did not train for 1 rep max in the gym yesterday, and again the question of sampling comes up. In terms of sampling and Brian Johnson's own blood values, it seems to be that his all-time best markers, so basically his blood results, seem to be collected within or have been collected within the last 2 years. There is also the chair stand test, which I was able to do 19 times within the 30 seconds. Then I recently only was able to do 7 pull-ups. My all-time max is maybe 30 or something like this. Then the push-ups are again in here, which is surprising. So they seem to be in both categories. Then we have the dead hang, the grip strength again in both categories. And then as we go down, the one leg stand is also apparently in both categories. Then the plank hold, reaction time again in both, sit and reach, sit and rise, and waist to height ratio. Then there is also a biomarkers section. In this case, I entered all of my recent biomarkers I could enter, and sometimes there was an issue with the with the unit because I live in a different country that is not the US, so sometimes this was a problem. It seems to be that in range is also coming soon, or maybe so it is already there, and to improve is also already there, which in theory would be useful, but currently there seem to be no none of the blood markers in this category already, which probably is a bug, I would assume. It would also be useful if it showed a range or an optimal range, similarly to how Inside Tracker, for example, gives me an optimal range, which is different from the medical range, which is applied usually, I think, for a broader population and not for me specifically. So in Inside Tracker, I think they do have basically smaller targeted categories, which then they apply to. For example, we can see here is a normal range, and sometimes to best explain it is probably like this. Here I'm in the normal range, which is already yellow. It's not the optimal range, so the optimal range is a smaller range, which is better for me based on my basically demographics, one could say. Then we go into the measurements section, which now, what is measurements compared to capabilities? It's probably a little bit hard to put all of these things into different buckets. So I recently entered 1 day of blood pressure and blood pressure systolic and diastolic. But here again, the question is, should it maybe be an average, a yearly average of my morning blood pressure? Then the question is, when do I actually measure? Do I still measure when I'm in bed, as a doctor told me once he does in a hospital? Then there is also body fat. I here entered the yearly average, but then if I enter the yearly average, I also would basically have to look daily whether the yearly average is changing. In this case, it changed, so I'm now 0.1% body fat, relative body fat, fatter, which I then would have to enter manually into the app because it does currently not take this data from or pull this data from Garmin. Now, because I'm using multiple fitness apps at this point in time, the eGym age calculation, the Technogym age calculation, it is just not feasible that I copy paste the data manually. Also, if only once a week, it is just a little bit too much time investment for me now. Then there is also the body mass index, which I still think is not calculated automatically. We can see I can enter plus, but it just makes no sense for me to calculate this. Basically to enter this. This could be calculated by basically pulling in the weight from Garmin, and then it could calculate this body mass index. It also could pull in the body mass index from Garmin, but maybe there's an issue with this. Here I also now have entered my VO2 max values. Again, it would be nice if they would be pulled in automatically from Garmin, and also if the app would prefer an average, for example, which Garmin also does not give out. Also because it's VO2 max, so the average calculation is a little bit different compared to resting heart rate. Now, in terms of the weight, I entered it once, and because I would have to otherwise enter it manually, it just does not make any sense. I now have very many fitness apps, and I have other things to do with my time. Then there are also the lab results, and these would be lab results that are from tests that are with the Blueprint company. So one can click on order tests here, up here, and this then leads to the web page. And here one then can order basically the test and also can then get results. One can also order the microplastics and also do the MRI, which I think is currently only in the US. Then there also can be ordered the speed of aging tests and blood draws and the Blueprint stack from Brian Johnson, the man himself, the most measured man in history, at least according to himself. Then we also click on the live clock, which we cannot really because it's coming soon. Then there are also messages, which I obviously won't go into because there are people who are messaging or have been messaging me. There are also events. And then there is the home feed. There is also now the notifications, so the shout out notifications or whatever these are, but I cannot click on them. Announcements, they are called. Then, very most importantly, there is also the Don't Die score. So here I can basically pull in the data from my fitness trackers. In my case, I use a Galaxy Watch 6 as well as a Garmin 6S Pro or 7S Pro. Now, I basically don't really take a look at the Don't Die score, mostly because of two things. First of all, it's quite difficult to get the data in. So whenever I get data in, then I have the problem that some of this data is utterly terrible. So therefore also the score and its calculation based on this data are not really useful, I think. At least at this point, not for me. And the second problem that I have with the Don't Die score in this app is that it has a social feed, which I cannot really have on my app because then that's what I take a look at multiple times a day, and I usually have other things to do. So the optimization for this behavior is to, well, cut it out, and this means uninstalling the app. So while I would be very interested in basically the biological age and entering the BioAge test, just having this app installed basically throws off to a certain extent my productivity. What's a last point that's quite noteworthy is that there are also best lists. So if we, for example, go into continuous push-ups, then now there are, first of all, basically there is a distribution, which is now continuous push-ups, and this is among the 6.1K measured users. So apparently 6.1K already put in measurements into this app. This makes it also fairly useful as a comparison app, one could say. And the bigger this app gets and the bigger this community gets, the more data basically you can compare yourself to. Then there is also a history with a graph. Then there is also a reference range. In my case, the continuous push-ups rank me in a male in the teens, and sometimes male in the teens is actually not the ideal thing, but often it is. And then there is also a leaderboard. This is true for many different metrics, but for some metrics it's kind of inversed. So I could not find a metric as of now in which the metric was inversed. So sometimes lower is better, and then still the people with the biggest value were on top. Now, a certain problem is also that the results aren't really verified. So if the reaction time was built into the app, then the Don't Die team would have some control. But here, the smallest entry is probably just 1 millisecond. And so the guy that is on top apparently has a reaction time of 1 millisecond. On the side panel, we can also see a few different things. Brian Johnson, very similarly, one could say, to how Elon Musk is very present in X, does have his own tab even. Then we also find the products, we also find the wallets. So there is this option to have the Don't Die passport in the wallet, but I won't show this since it kind of gives away something. Then there are also the leaderboards. So here I can compare myself in terms of score, in terms of my current score streak, in terms of my best score streak, speed of aging, biological age, and fitness. So I actually have not entered this metric yet. So it seems to be the case that the best measured person out of the 40 participants is 19.12 years in terms of the biological age calculation that is based on this category here, which is the BioAge tests. So we again click on this and see what you would have to excel in. Basically continuous push-ups, grip strength, 1 leg stand, reaction time, sit and reach, sit and rise, and waist to height ratio. We can also take a look at the products tab. So here we can shop for the different blueprint and Don't Die things. So for example, a hoodie, cocoa powder, the essential capsules. We can also order the advanced panel, the basic panel, the microplastic test, plastics test, and speed of aging test. Speed of aging, speed of aging, speed of aging. And that's it. That's kind of the best social media app I have been in, but it's also still very buggy. At least it used to be very buggy. I tried posting in the app a bit, but often the pictures were kind of in the wrong order, and so I eventually, also mostly because of the reason that it makes no logical sense to in the long term have this app installed on my phone, since it is a social media app, I gave up on posting in this app. Or let's just say mostly I gave up on posting.